determined that a particular activity is not consistent with the park's mission to conserve, preserve, and protect our natural resources, or if it's determined that a particular use is not fiscally responsible. Come to the parks anyway and enjoy them for what they have to offer. It also needs to be pointed out that even those county residents who choose not to visit the parks benefit from the conservation, preservation, and protection of natural resources that our county parks give to all of us. We all drink the water. In fact, most of us drink well water. I know I do. We all breathe the air. The trees in our parks are clean air factories that benefit each and every one of us. Our clean drinking water depends directly on the ecosystem provided by our county parks. This takes me to a concern that we have that I didn't address in the answer to the first question because I knew there wasn't enough time, so I saved it. This is our concern about the future of the next generations of Cuyahoga County if the county park system is compromised. Not only do the parks give us clean air and water now, the quality of the air and water in the future will be directly affected by what we do in our parks now. If we fail to protect the delicate ecosystem, an ecosystem that depends upon conserving, preserving, and protecting the land in its natural state, we will harm our children and our grandchildren and their children. Not only will air and water be affected, but erosion of soil, property values, and our peace and tranquility in Geauga County. All of these things depend upon protecting our parks. A healthy future and a good quality of life for all of us depends upon being good stewards of the land. One of the ways in which we can be good stewards is to employ the 4 criteria I've described to you when thinking about any use of the parks. Is the use compatible with the primary mission of the park to conserve, preserve, and protect natural resources? Is the use necessary? Is it fiscally responsible? And is the decision-making process transparent? We need to use these criteria whenever the district is asked to consider adding a current activity that's not allowed, or any activity that's not currently allowed or available in the Geauga Parks. This will make us good stewards and give our children, grandchildren, and all future generations a good quality of life in beautiful Geauga County.
Thanks, Sharon. You know, Shelley covered that pretty well, and I don't have too much to add other than that. In this day and age, it seems whenever we call so many entities, whether it be government or private sector, we get an answering machine, and we leave a message, and maybe 2 weeks later we get a call back. You know, you've all been there, you know what that's like. But you know, that's not the case with the Geauga Parks. They're pretty, you know, as Shelley mentioned before, all of the employees there is very good. There's some very competent people working for the parks, and we should be thankful for that. Basically, like Shelley mentioned, in that situation where a person calls, they should be treated the way we like to be treated. You know, we should treat them the way we would like to be treated. Listen to them, tell them you're going to respond to them, and then get back. If their suggestion has already been considered, then tell them why it's not being used or will be used. And again, it's an opportunity like that when someone cares enough to call the park with a suggestion. It's a good opportunity to just educate them on some of the values. If the suggestion is something that is inappropriate, fill them in on some of the ecosystem services that parkland does provide, like pulling some of the carbon out of the air. That's, you know, there's been much in the news about what global warming is such a serious problem. And this is just one ecosystem service that the park provides. It pulls a lot of carbon out of the air in prairie areas and in forest areas. Now, I have a little bit of time, so I'd like to go just back to question 1 that I ran out of time on. That was the funding situation. There's some long-term changes that could be made to solve that funding problem. The big problem is the probate judge just has too much power, I feel. And that's going to need a state law change to change that. people don't realize, they think when they vote for a probate judge, they're just voting for a judge to sit in the courtroom. But the probate judge has tremendous power over what happens to a park, and that person, if he's so intent, can degrade a park, destroy a park. So there needs to be a better way for park commissioners to be picked. And a good way of doing it would be to require him, rather than him picking whoever he wants, require him to make selections that are given to him from an advisory board. This advisory board should be designed so that they would be picking competent people that have an interest in parks and have this experience in that area. Firing is the same way. It shouldn't be so easy for a probate judge to get rid of a park commissioner he doesn't like. That if the judge wanted to do that for some reason, he should go before the advisory board, make his case, and let them vote on whether the case is justifiable or not. And that's about it. Thank you.
Last question, it's a short one. When and how do you believe that hunting and trapping of wildlife should be permitted in our parks? When and how?
Short question, maybe not such a short answer. Okay. Hunting, well, the real short answer is that hunting and trapping should be permitted when it's needed to preserve, conserve, and protect our parks. That is pretty short. We don't disagree with the Park District's published literature on this point. This is actually their brochure, Questions and Answers about Wildlife Management. I'm going to just read to you a little bit from it. The brochure starts this way. The mission of the Geauga Park District is to preserve, conserve, and protect the natural features of Geauga County and to provide the opportunity for people to enjoy and appreciate those resources. A portion of the Park District's mission refers to conservation, the active care of our land. Natural resource management is the process of providing active conservation stewardship or care of plant and animal species within the various habitats. It often requires proactive measures to control both invasive plants and animal species that alter the balance and health of a natural area. And that's absolutely right. But note that the goal here is not recreation, it's conservation. We understand that conservation requires management of the deer population and occasionally removing nuisance animals. This should be done only as necessary and in accordance with sound scientific principles and best management practices on the recommendation and under the direction of the park biologist and natural resource management. The type of animal, the number of animals, and the exact preserve where the animals are located must be specified in any permits given for hunting or trapping within the parks. Each year, a new study must be done to develop a plan that addresses any need for hunting or trapping at that particular time. We can't make a decision for this year that will apply to next year. The study needs to be done every year. I understand that the National Park Service has developed a plan to address the issues associated with excessive deer numbers and overbrowsing in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. The Geauga Park District could easily look at the plan that the National Park Service has developed and model a plan after theirs. They've already done the work for us. Yes, the National Park Service does use sharpshooters, which is more expensive than using our own local hunters. But this is an expense that should at least be considered if using sharpshooters is more effective in addressing the problem of excessive deer than allowing our local hunters to hunt. Geauga Park District needs to do more study in this area. Again, I want to emphasize that the district should be guided here by its mission to preserve, conserve, and protect, and that any hunting and trapping should be in accordance with sound scientific methods of wildlife management. Now, as with any proposed park use, we can use the 4 criteria that I've given to you to look at controlled hunting and trapping in the parks. Is controlled hunting compatible with the primary mission of the park to conserve, preserve, and protect our natural resources? It may be, if it's done for the purpose of necessary wildlife management in accordance with sound scientific principles and best management practices. But it's not compatible with the primary mission if the recreational purpose trumps the mission to preserve, conserve, and protect. Is controlled hunting necessary in terms of being available outside the parks? I'm not a hunter, and I think John may address this, but it's my understanding that plenty of hunting opportunities in Geauga County. Is controlled hunting and trapping fiscally responsible? I find that a really interesting question for study, and that would require comparing the alternatives, including sharpshooters, taking into consideration issues of liability insurance, park closing, ranger supervision costs, etc. I do have a particular question about trapping that I've had difficulty in understanding, and maybe there's somebody here who could explain this to me, but I don't understand fiscally why park employees can't themselves do whatever limited trapping is necessary, and why that actually wouldn't cost less than allowing trappers to come in from the outside. So, and lastly, is the decision-making process transparent? This year, the process used to conduct controlled hunting and trapping was far from transparent. And it took multiple public records requests from members of Protect Geauga Parks to even begin to be able to put together a picture of how controlled hunting and trapping decisions were made by the district this past hunting season. Certainly, none of us in the group had a clue at the time that the decisions were actually being made by the park district, that those decisions were being made on how the hunting was going to be conducted. So the park district does need to improve their transparency in this area.
Shelley mentioned hunting and trapping areas. I'll leave this up here so you can come take a look at it later, but you can see this is a map of Ohio showing hunting areas on there, fishing areas, and you'll be able to see there are a lot of them. Plus, there are many farmers who are more than happy to have people hunt on their land, including one of our park commissioners was mentioned he has a deer problem. We have, in Ohio, we have incomplete ecosystems for various reasons. Man has altered the ecosystem since he's been here in the late 1700s. There were originally, that's why we need management of some of these species, because of what we've done. We've eliminated a lot of big predators. There were mountain lions here at one time. And in fact, I don't recall ever hearing people worry about big predators, but I never, in Ohio, I don't recall ever hearing any instance of a mountain lion killing someone back when. But they disappeared they were probably shot, whatever, back out by probably the mid-1850s, they were gone. Deer are a big problem because there are no predators. The mountain lion were an ambush killer where they would hunt. Deer were probably their primary prey. Because of that, there are no really good predators of deer, and if they proliferate, it can cause a lot of damage to our forest. They can devastate some of the wildflowers, and this is a great time of year. You'll be seeing some wildflowers now, called spring ephemerals, some of the most beautiful flowers there are. So they need to be managed. The park policy has been to follow state law, and that's not always the best way of reducing populations. The state gets its money for its wildlife department by selling licenses, so they tend to look at that when they make their policies. There's some disadvantage to public hunting in parks. One is, first of all, you have to close the parks for a period of time, a week or so other people can't use it. Hunters often they have their eyes on the buck with the big rack, you know what I mean? They want to mount it on the wall. Those are not always from a biological standpoint, that's not necessarily the best way. If you're trying to reduce the population, you may very well want to take out more does. With the public, the results are problematical. You don't always know how many they're going to get. With sharpshooters, you know pretty well. They know what they're doing. This is their profession. They'll go in at night oftentimes with high-powered rifles. They're accurate. They don't wound. Typically, they won't be wounding animals. Again, they know what they're doing. Trapping is it's a situation where trapping in parks should be a last resort, because the animals that the parks that are being trapped have functions in the park, particularly beaver. Beaver are a keystone animal that provides a lot of habitat for other animals, and it provides a lot of benefit to man. You can spend some money to prevent damage by beavers. You don't have to trap them. There are excluder devices that you can put on culverts to keep beavers out. You can clear their workings. They're persistent, I know, but you can manually clear their dams out if they're damming something that's going to flood a road. But that's what we should be doing. We should be trying other areas other than, it's always easy to say, call the trapper, bring the trapper in and let him do it. Again, and another thing is trapping should be humane, and often that's not the case. The park has allowed traps to be used that were not very humane. And I know that can happen. Oftentimes an animal gets leg caught in the trap and it will chew its leg off to get out. There's been trapping going on in the parks that the park naturalist and natural resource management has not recommended. There were at least 5 areas this last fall that were trapped. Natural resource management is the division of the parks that they make recommendations for any trapping. Okay.
Thank you both for some very interesting answers. We'll move on to the second part of the program, but I'd like to give you about a 2 or 3 minute break if anyone wants to go back and get coffee or tea. Jump up now. No? You're all set? Well, then we will move on. Okay. The next part of the program will be, oh, I don't have my sign-up papers. Oh, can you get them, Kathy? Thank you. I'm going to call people who have signed up from each paper, and then they can either ask a question of our panelists or make a 1-minute comment. And that way we'll have time to allow a lot of people to participate. I'm going to start with the conservation side of the issue because there are more signatures on that one than the other one, and then we'll alternate. Pardon?
What about asking to volunteer for that instead of calling their names?
No, I'm going to call their name and then they'll have 1 minute to speak. I like your beeper. Sometimes the candidates' nights, the candidates don't see the card when she or someone else holds it up, but that beeper is really good. They can't miss it. It did get your attention, right?
Sure did.
Okay. Now I'll just call the names from one and the other, and then whoever you are, because I don't know most of you, stand up and speak loudly and ask your comment or make your question. What?
Both mics work, don't they?
Yes.
Why don't we have a roving mic? Because otherwise you cannot hear.
Oh, okay.
Just repeat the question.
If I can remember all of it.
You want me the roving mic? I'm timing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because people need to hear the question.
Okay, the first person I'll call on is Kathleen Webb, and she signed up for the conservation sheet.
Hi. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Rosemary
Mhm.
and panel. I hear about the changes in direction that the park seems to be taking, and I hear about the suspension of a levy. I was one of the people who voted in support of that park levy. It's suspended, and I'm angry. These things make me angry. I want to know, where should I direct my anger? Who should I be angry at? And then what do? What can I do that might be positive in trying to get the parks back on track, to preserve, conserve, and protect our parklands? And specifically, what do I do the next time a levy is on the ballot? Do you think it's wise to support the parks with a levy this time? Thank you.
All right, I'll start if you have anything to add, John, please do. Where to direct your anger? I would direct your anger into action. And by action, I would come join Protect Geauga Parks. We are a not-for-profit corporation, and our mission is to preserve, conserve, and protect Geauga Parks and to get them back on track and in the right direction. And so please, if you're angry, join us. We'll find ways that you can help. And we really may have a long haul ahead of us. The probate judge was just elected to a 6-year term. We've got about 5.5 years to go. Getting called on time here. I do want to say something about whether or not to vote for a levy. It's a really interesting question. And I've always voted for parks levies, and I probably would continue to do that. I want the parks to have money. The parks are wonderful, and I love them. And I would vote for a levy and then continue to work with Protect Geauga Parks to keep the parks going in the right direction.
I agree with Sherry about voting for a levy. I think part of the anger can be directed to the judge to let him know that you're unhappy. And the same thing with the commissioners. Check the park websites. The park commissioners have email addresses. You can send them an email address. Direct your anger to your house, to your representatives. They're the ones that write state law, and they can change it. But it takes pressure to do that. And could you hear me okay? Okay. So that's about all I can think of. And I agree with Sherry about voting for, it's only gonna hurt the park if they're defunded further. And there are some people that's what they're looking for. So my tendency would be to vote for the levy, even if you're not all that happy with things, the way things are going on.
We have to share this 3 ways now. On the recreation sheet, the first sign up is Frank Gurtz. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name.
I'm Frank Wertz. I live in Munson Township, and we live about 2 or 3 miles from Swine Creek Reservation. I spent quite a bit of time there, and it's one of the areas where the Park District last summer essentially plowed under a prairie area that had been used for tagging the monarch butterflies during their migration, and provided habitat for a lot of songbirds and other wildlife. They put in a baseball field there, about 2 or 3 acres of that area, and I've been out there several times taking pictures of that so-called baseball field, which is really just a mud plain at this point, because most of the grass that would be removing some of the water from the soil was gone. If you were to play third base on that field, you better have your boots on, because there's a 10-foot wide and 4-inch deep mud hole right there on third base. And I think that's a very unwise kind of thing to be converting wildlife areas to that kind of use.
Thanks, Frank, for your comment there. I just like to say I was very disappointed in there too. But the park needs to be protecting natural areas like that. That was a nice meadow. Not only was it an area for monarch butterflies to be tagged and to live, but fields like that are, that's where so many of the meadow nesting birds that are disappearing in Ohio nest, things like meadowlarks, bobolinks, they're going, and they're disappearing quick in Ohio, so often because farmers mow their fields early for hay and the nests get destroyed. So this is what the park should be doing. They should be protected. We don't need more baseball fields in the park. We need more fields for butterflies, for nesting birds, and animals like that. Animals that are disappearing all around.
Okay, the next person on the list is Jacqueline Samuel. Raise your hand, Jacqueline. Oh.
I had an introduction to the parks by Bob McCullough, who took me to every park in the county, and so he got me hooked, of course. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on what John was saying, and that's a friend of mine says, follow the money, and he's sitting right here. So if you want to know what's going on, you follow the money. And I have here in my hand the plan for that was done by the really good commissioners we had a few years ago. And they planned monies out for each of the parks 5 years out. All of those monies were declared a surplus, and they were redistributed among the residents in a very communist way, I must say, with the residents of the county. I don't know whether that was the moral thing to do. It seems that that's not what the voters wanted.
I can always think of something to say. Again, I agree. I think the park should be using their money for with the Ohio revised. If you look at the Ohio revised code, 1545.09 or 0.11, and I'm certainly not going to read it to you because all of our eyes will glaze over. But you can. They use words like protect and preservation of parks, acquire land for forest reserves, conservation of natural resources, including streams, lakes, and various other natural habitats. This was written in 1919, and the park should be following this. It's a state law. The people vote for levies, and they have a right to expect that that money will be used for that purpose. So.
I agree. That was a short comment. Okay, now we're on the recreation list again, or the new regs. Peg Hunt. Are you here, Peg? No? Oh, okay. Well, and Bob Hunt is right under her. Is Bob here? They're the last two on this list. Did they leave? I would have liked to hear their comments or questions, but I guess we won't. We'll go back to the other list, and we have several more people on here that we'll call. Frank Birch, you're on here too. Are you on both sides? Would you like to say something again?